Evening all, Barney, addict.
Hi, Barney.
I think probably like everyone who sits here, I'm full of nerves. I think the last time I was this nervous was a year ago when I checked into rehab. But I'm very, very grateful to be sitting here. And it's funny what you are grateful for, something that puts you in this feeling like this. But I'm grateful to be sitting here and grateful for all the people who've sat here before me, because I've always struggled with emotions, and I'll go into that in a little bit shortly. And listening to people sitting in this chair, talking about emotions, finding the similarities, like they say, has been a godsend to me. And I hope that, that going forward in my next year of sobriety, that I can, say something that someone recognises, relates to, and helps them. So on that, I'll start. I'll give a little background. I wouldn't say my childhood wasn't the best. My parents sent me away when I was just before my 8th birthday, and I wasn't a bad kid, but I needed some direction, or that's what they thought I needed. And so they sent me to this place, which was, I don't think, realised what actually I was going to. It was pretty brutal. It was pretty horrendous. I remember like how they separate you from your parents. It's like a swimming pool. You dive in, swim a length, you get up, they're gone. That's it. And you're not allowed to see them for 6 months. You're not allowed to speak to them. You can write letters. So I just turned 8, and I remember getting out of that pool and just sitting on the edge crying. I was like, what is going on here? And I think that's probably one of the last times I cried, because the place I went to, showing your emotions or crying, that was a sign of weakness, and that was something that you didn't do, because it made your life pretty shitty. So the more you buried your emotions, the less of a beating you got, the less the mental, physical abuse. I was quite fortunate, I think, because sadly, I turned to, bullying, because I'd rather bully than be bullied. It was a lot easier, and the place taught me how to lie, to get out of trouble, whether you were in trouble or not. It taught you how to manipulate, taught you how to bear your emotions. I think it taught me how to be obsessive. I was trying to think about when my addiction or whenever it started. I don't think about it too much, but I always remember being quite obsessed with things. Some healthier than others. My one obsession was rugby, and this was a saving grace to me, because in the establishment, if you were part of the rugby team, you were part of a family. You got treated slightly better. You didn't get such a beating. Things got overlooked. I mean, I was obsessed with rugby. I was obsessed with learning as well, because I had nothing else to do. And it was strange at that age. And I kind of look at, my son's 9 now, and I think it was a harsh age, but that's the past. There's no point in dwelling on it. So throughout, I think from the age of 8, 9, 10, it was pretty shitty. I didn't really see my parents that much. We were allowed home probably every 6 months, and like I say, communication was via letter. But what I didn't realise, that obviously all your mail was read, ingoing and outgoing. So if you put some bad stuff in there, that came back on you. So the communication dropped, and if it was something from your parents, obviously they sort of covered all letters as well, so you wouldn't get anything from them. So I kind of felt very alone, and I think that's the first time that I kind of really went into myself. But the only thing that saved me was rugby. And through the years, I played good rugby. I mean, it's all I wanted in my life. I played for the county. I played north of England divisional, and when I was 16, I got selected to play for England, and I played for England for 3 years. And I just cracked on. I just kept my head down. And then sadly, about 16 or 17, my right shoulder went, and then my left shoulder went. So my career kind of went downhill at about 18. And I think that's where I found a replacement for rugby with with other stuff. I finished there when I was 18, so I was there for 10 years. And I didn't know what to do, because over the time, when I think I was 11 and a half, my parents got divorced. And it wasn't a nice place to go back to. So the limited time I went back to their house, or well, it was 2 houses at a time, I didn't want to go back there because it was horrible. So I kind of really left home. I'd say from that day they dropped me off. I never really went back. I look back on that again, not too much, but it was quite sort of, mentally draining. I didn't really understand. I felt like I'd missed out on the normal childhood that people had. So I decided I'd go to university. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but my mind was set on rugby, and that was it. That was my obsession. And I went to university, and I chose like sports science and sports therapy, because I thought I'd be dicking around in the gym all day. That was like the biggest mistake. It was all science. It was really hard. I could get into it because I worked hard. I was bright, but it didn't interest me like the rugby did. So that's when the drugs started kicking in university. Alcohol had always been around there. With rugby, alcohol's related, beer's related, but I didn't realise how much alcohol was in the background of my drug taking at the time. It was always there. And as I found out, and as the alcohol card says at the end, when you remove your drug of choice, it's pretty obvious that your next addiction will be slap bang in your face. So, my rugby stopped. I was still grasping onto it about the age of 20. At university, I got through, I passed. And when I was in last year at university, I got a job in the fashion industry, which I spent 10 years working in. Now, cocaine's condoned in that industry. My boss was a cokehead. There's always alcohol around. There's always drugs around. And I just always do everything, again, it's the obsession, everything to the extreme. Because I remember thinking, because my school was very structured that I went to, so before I went out, I'd think, how much can I physically take? And then I double it. And that was the mentality. It's just or then I double drop, and then after 10 minutes it's not working, so we'll snort it, and then it's just that madness. So for 10 years I went through, and it was like I say, on a daily basis it was there. It was condoned. No one cared. Everyone was doing it, and it was just a daily thing. And I was getting worse and worse. And I finally, at the last year, I ran London Fashion Week. And at this point, I was done, and that was the first time I went to the fellowship. And I remember it was 2007 in Clapham, and the night before, I'd come out of the pub and had an altercation with 3 blokes, and it could have turned out a lot worse than it did, to a serious extent. Obviously, it wasn't my fault. Well, that's what I thought. So I went, and I walked in, and everyone says you remember your first meeting, and I walked in there. And I was just like, this is not going to work, there's God everywhere. And I had an issue with God, because the God that had been forced upon me I had to go to church every day, and it was like, that God, that big man with a beard, blah, blah, blah. And I used to pray, please get me out of this place, every day on my knees. And those prayers were never answered, or I thought they weren't. So I had an issue with God. I had an issue with emotions. I still have an issue with emotions. Still shaking now, talking about this. And people being nice to me. I wasn't used to that, so I was like, this is a bit weird, really. And so I left halfway through. I thought, what else can I do? I don't know if I'd hit rock bottom. I thought I think that was the first of many rock bottoms. And then I suddenly came up with an idea that I'll leave the UK, and I'll go somewhere where drugs aren't available. And I did. And I mean, I can guarantee you I tried many stupid ways to get drugs there, not even worried about the death penalty or whatever comes of it in the Middle East. But that didn't work, so alcohol took over. And even then, alcohol was very difficult to get hold of. You could get hold of it, but within 2 weeks you could find a lifetime supply. So fast forward 10 years. So I moved over there to work in the aviation and aerospace industry. I was like head of operations. I did about 8 years with this company. I did well, and it's like everything. I kind of burnt out. All the yets of work had happened, and so I then moved on to defence and security, and it's like a big male sort of ego orientated world. That really suited me. And we arranged the sale of guns, weapons, and anything, we sorted out for people to buy, for people to sell. Very stressful. And, days would go without sleeping, and the drinking again was just getting out of control again. All the way through this, I had my life, or my wife and my son, but they were never really part of me, of Barney. And I was a terrible person. I cheated on my wife. I was, I'd be so deceitful, so manipulative. And I think it's been mentioned before that, people think they're going mad with the shit that you do to people. And so in 2019, I decided to try the fellowship again. Now in the Middle East, it's AA because obviously CA and NA aren't acceptable because it's illegal, but obviously it's the same principles. But I was doing it over, during COVID, I was doing it mainly over Zoom, doing Barney's steps, lying, still drinking, just picking bits and pieces, and it didn't work. And then the job kind of fell through. I was at rock bottom. I was drink driving every day. I was driving my son. I was driving other people's children, drunk. And if you get caught, your life's over. But I thought I'm above this. I work in this job. I've got friends who can get me out of this. That attitude, that arrogance, that ego. And then the job came to an end because we were dealing with Russians, and our company was owned by Americans. And obviously there's sanctions between them, so they said, you need to close the company. And I said to Mark, she'd had enough. COVID had been a real killer for her because she ran a early learning centre, so the restrictions were strict there. And all this time I was out of it constantly, and she was trying to support me. And we made a decision to come back to the UK because I thought like this is a rock bottom, So we came back to the UK after 14 years of carnage. And as I was a year yesterday, about a week ago, we had a good sit down and talked about stuff at where I'm at. And the word sorry doesn't work with my wife anymore. It's all about living amends, which I do, because of CA, and I do go to AA as well. But anyway, so we came back to the UK, and I thought, this is it, final chance. I'll sort myself out. And I got here, and the availability of alcohol is just ridiculous. 24 hours a day you can get it. So I started at 5 a.m. all day. I got a job in London in a tech company that lasted 6 months, and then it was a rock bottom because I woke up one day and I was just like, I don't want to be here. What I've done to my wife, to my son, to people around me, to myself. And that moment for me, when you're like, I think people are better off if I'm not here. So that's when rehab came in. And a year ago today, I checked into rehab, and I needed rehab. I needed to be in there. I needed that detox because I just couldn't stop. I'd be like, I'll just get like a litre of vodka, and I'll drink that by 6. And I'll feel fine, but then it's the next morning, then all day, 3 or 4 bottles. Then the next morning, you're being sick, just lying down. How do I stop feeling like this? Have another drink. So I needed that detox in rehab, just to clear my system. Then I needed rehab to learn about me, to learn about the disease, because I didn't know it was a disease. I didn't know much about it because I was so naive to it, or just couldn't admit it or couldn't accept it. So it's what I needed, and to be honest, it was the best thing ever. I was, 24/7, well, nearly 24/7. You're talking about your emotions, because I personally believe, my lack of emotions from when I was younger had a massive part in how long it took me to hit that final rock bottom where it was just black inside. And so I did the rehab. I ended up doing 6 weeks. And after I left rehab, I did everything I was told to do. I didn't get a job, a high-paying job that's got stress in it that could trigger me. I did some volunteering work. I took time out to try and start making amends, living amends, daily amends to my wife, because she was at rock bottom as well. And slowly, a day at a time, and I'm a massive fan of a day at a time, because I believe that's all I needed to do when I got out of rehab, is one day at a time, do the steps. It took me about 4 or 5 months to do the steps, because it took me some time to find a sponsor, because I didn't find this group, which I classed as my home group, till a little bit later on. I went straight into AA, and everything's similar, but I love this group. I'm so grateful for everyone in here that I feel that I can talk openly. There's no judgment. If I can talk nonsense, I don't know. I just feel so comfortable. I feel at home, and so I've been doing that. And steps. Step 10: when you're wrong, promptly admit it. Now, admitting I'm wrong, but I do that now on a daily basis, and I still do all my daily journals, and I look back at my gratitude lists and what I used to put on them when I was in rehab, and what I put on them now, and some stuff on there you think, should that be on a gratitude list? It was one situation. My father went into hospital, but the whole situation allowed my wife to entrust my son with me, because she was there every day to look after him, to feed the dog, which we got, that I promised, that I would take care of, that I would, be in charge. So, something like that, being grateful for a situation like that. Maybe I'm blabbering a bit now, I don't know. But yeah, so I've been following it, on a daily, 24 hours a day, that's it. And I'm still working on my emotions. I still find it hard. I mean, today I've been winding myself up all day about, what if you choke? What if you cry? What if you cry? For God's sake, you cry. No one's going to see you crying. But I know that no one minds that. You probably want to see me cry. You might do in a minute. But yeah, it's just that feeling uncomfortable. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. And I am very grateful for every single person in this room here, and every single person that's sat in this chair that I've listened to, and they've helped me. And I hope that I can go on to help people more as I progress in my recovery, because it's only a year. It's not been easy. There have been some pink fluffy clouds, but there's some shitty times where I'm like, oh. And then I say to my wife, do you really want to know? She goes, yeah. She goes, oh, maybe I didn't. So honesty. But yeah, honesty, and that's the thing. And I think the other thing, my inability to be honest with myself stopped me being honest with everyone else. And that's what the delay was as well. Emotions for me, honesty for me. So yeah, thank you all again. And I'll leave it there.